everybody, this is Eileen Email with EnPhase In Tune with Autism podcast. Here we'll discuss mindset, efforts to increase mind-body connection, and much more as it pertains to autism. My hope is that this information will reach those who need it and help provide a better understanding of the mind and body of someone with autism. Hello, welcome to the podcast, EnPhase In Tune with Autism. I am your host, Eileen Email, and I'm excited to bring this podcast to you today. It's time. It's time. So if you have been listening for a while or following for a while, you may have seen, I don't know if it was a video or a podcast that I had done, but I was mentioning a vision and inspiration that I had for a school designed for non-speaking autistics. I don't even remember when I first started getting this inspiration. I know for sure it was at least 2023, so it's been some time now. And to be honest, it's been a lot of self-doubt with trying to pursue this in any way and share it with others. It's been a lot of back and forth with believing in it and then also having lots of self-doubt for many different reasons. One, if you know me, you know that for a while I've been very heavily getting more in touch, for lack of better words, with my spirituality. And I'm just going to use the word so everybody understands it, God. I know everybody has different beliefs and ways that they relate to God. That's not exactly what we're getting into, but so I can give you some context on where I'm coming from. When I tell you, it must have been 2023, it could have been before, but so many days it was like the words like school for non-speakers, school designed for non-speakers, and inspirations in so many different directions. And it's just always in my thoughts, always on my heart. And going through getting more in touch with my spirituality, the way that I can now explain it is I believe that we all have a God connection, and our God connection will speak to us in different ways. And in this world, especially culturally, the way we've been conditioned, how our nervous systems work, and the way we're designed as individuals, many times that God connection can be so hard to trust because you can feel such high levels of fear and self-doubt inside of your body. And so when I first started getting this inspiration for the school, it was like, okay, they're just thoughts, right? They're just thoughts about a school that's going to be a better spot for non-speakers. But it was just continuous, just continuous. To be quite honest, for the vision and inspiration that I feel, I really had a hard time feeling like I could put it into words, into conversation, where people would hear it and understand it. And at the time, the way I was looking at it is like, wow, I'm just feeling this feeling a lot, right? It's coming up a lot. And as time has gone on, and the more that I've learned, I'm realizing how to discern what is God's impulse for me and what is fear and self-doubt. And so now I'm happy to say that there's plenty of times where I feel like I can hear God's voice very clearly and I can follow God's impulse for me. And that's what I'm trying to do right now. And getting back to, I feel like it was hard to be able to explain the vision because the vision that I have and that I've had doesn't line up with traditional schooling. And it also didn't line up with things that I felt people were ready to receive and understand. Now I'm feeling in a much better place because I have gotten to this spot where it's like, okay, it's so clear, it's so palpable. These inspirations, it's something trying to be born. It's something that's trying to come out into the world. And me not sharing it is like trying to step on a flower that's trying to grow. And even if this information will fall on deaf ears, it doesn't matter because I know that I'm following something real. And even if it doesn't happen tomorrow, maybe it'll happen in a couple of years, or maybe it won't happen at all. I don't know. I do know that I can't do it by myself. I need other people's gifts and other people's times and talents and understanding working with me in order to ever achieve the type of vision that I'll share with you. So the feelings that I have for the school that I would want are very much in alignment with the information that's shared on the podcast, The Telepathy Tapes. If you haven't listened to it, it is now becoming so popular. And I'm sure that at some point you're going to be pulled to listen to it if you haven't listened to it. I think it'll be a great resource for you if you believe in the type of vision that I'm coming through with. If you would ever want to support my vision, because in the telepathy tapes, there's so much information that I feel like I had just been integrating for years and understanding more and more for years. And to be able to fully serve the non speaking community as best as we can, mind, body, soul, I feel like we need that part of the picture. Now, pre telepathy tapes, I feel like it was so hard for me to even try to bring in this type of information to people because, number one, letterboard and presuming competence in general was a new idea here when I came to Louisiana. Because, remember, I speak about this a lot. Old paradigm was thinking that non speaking autistics are very low cognitively. Now we understand that they're not. They're fully competent in living in a body that they need more connection with. They need more practice with purposeful motor control, right? And that idea, even, was something that people were just starting to hear and starting to learn how to digest. And so, in a while, I've been in a spot where I'm feeling this very deep call and inspiration to make a greater impact than just me working with one kid a couple of times a week or once a week. Now that the telepathy tapes is out and I feel like people can use it as a resource, and now I'm at the spot where I want to speak this vision exactly the way I'm getting it so I can attract the people who are open to it, who are going to help me make it happen. Because I can't have the people who are naysayers, and I can't have the people who aren't presuming competence, and I can't have the people who are like, prove it to me, because that's not what we're doing here. And that's definitely the energy that I'm not going to work with if I ever do start to pursue this vision. So, I'm going to explain to you the things that I've been feeling for the school. And I've contacted a non speaker and their mom this morning, and I'm wanting to contact more. And I want to tell them about it and I want to get their feedback. So, number one would be presuming competence. Everyone who would be at that school working there would fully understand that mind and body are two different things. And what we're dealing with is a competent mind that is many times not connected to the body where they can bring in purposeful movement. They would understand that these are highly sensitive bodies that are very susceptible to the subtle energies all around all the time. These people would absolutely be on that wavelength. They would be working with getting in tune with autism instead of fighting against it and trying to make it something that it's not. These people would be open minded. And these people would also look at the research, because the research that these people are competent, talking non speakers, is absolutely there. Yet, mainstream still goes with old research because mainstream always takes a long time to switch paradigms. Thankfully for the telepathy tapes, Kai Dickens said it in the Joe Rogan episode. It's been the Trojan horse to get people to actually start looking into spelling and stop ignoring it and start giving it attention and learning about it. So, yes, number one, these people would presume competence, the people working there, and they would be educated on that. And it would be that type of environment. And number two, the environment is very important. The environment is very important. I'm going to list an episode that just came out actually with the talk tracks, which is a side, like, add-on season to the telepathy tapes, because there's a lady named Susie Miller on it, and she talks about this, about how important the environment is for these kids. And side note about Susie, whenever like I told you, I've been on this, what I call a spiritual path for a couple of years. Really, what got me onto it was working with non-speakers. And, it is my belief that they have this high frequency. I think that they're in touch with a dimension that humans are waking up to. And so I was around that all the time. Also, the second thing was I gave birth naturally. And I swear ever since then, it's like old Eileen kept dying off and new Eileen kept coming up, and it was like a grueling process. People wouldn't think, but lots of depression, um, lots of inner obstacles. Yeah. So when I was going through this in the thick of it, you know, I knew something was happening to me. I was no longer who I was before, and I was dealing with a lot coming up. And a lot of times it would come back to autism. Like it's somehow I was relating my experience to that. And, by this point, I had had experiences with non-speakers where they had completely blown my mind and like shattered my reality of what was. And I talked to my husband about it, but I didn't talk to many people about it because we were living in that materialistic paradigm. And you really are afraid that people are going to think you're crazy and you think people are just not interested or whatever. So I was dealing with a lot of earth shattering realizations. Let's put it that way. And so when I was in the thick of it and it always came back to in my heart, it's like it always came back to autism. So I looked up autism spirituality or something like that, autism spiritual awakening. And this is years before the telepathy tapes. Susie Miller came up, the lady that I just told you about, who was on the latest episode on the telepathy tapes. And so I got her book. She had a profound spiritual experience in 1999 with an autistic, and I got her book, and wow, it validated so many things for me, and I had similar experiences, and the realizations that she said in her book, I'm like, "Yes, these are the messages that I've been getting." So, I felt like I wasn't crazy and just making it up. What it was God's impulse or God's wisdom speaking to me. And again, this is hard for me to say because I feel like people will judge and maybe they will, but I'm sure a lot of people won't. A lot of people have a relationship with God and understand that everybody else's relationship with God is different. I really try to trust people's relationships with God because I want them to trust mine. And I finally trust mine. And that has been the best thing ever. I think I kind of got off on a tangent, but number one, people will presume competence. Okay. And number two, it's about the environment. It's about the environment. Okay, so these kids are very tuned in to the subtle energies around them. Their bodies are, okay? And as of recent years, I've been meditating for a couple of years now, and now it's very much part of my day. And I will do meditations to clear my energy and connect with the highest good for each of my clients because I've realized how important this is. Some of my great teachers, like Houston, who is on the telepathy tapes, he always talked to me about how intention is so powerful and so impactful. And he, along with other non speakers, have wrote on the boards that people's energies will absolutely affect them. And that when someone has calm presence, it floods their system with good feelings. But this is a thing that takes daily practice, right? And so these kids are so affected by the environment. And my dream for them is to create an environment that goes in knowing that and that is intentional with at least trying to create a clear environment. So, what this would look like, the workers there, we'd start off our day with 10 minutes, everyone together, going inside, focusing on the perceiver, who is not the body, who is not anything else, so that we can then connect more deeply with the non speakers who would be at the school. It would be our intention to feed the senses instead of overwhelming them or underwhelming them. So again, this is not completely clear, but this is definitely something I'd want to keep at the forefront of understanding. It would be designed just for them. I'd want a huge yard because so many of them have talked about nature and about being out in nature. So I'd want a yard completely safe and fenced in. And one thing that I've heard a lot of non speakers talk about is they want autonomy. They do have bodies that are a lot of times uncontrollable. So that means that they can't stop running on a dime sometimes. Like sometimes their body will take off and they can't stop, right? So a lot of times it's not safe to leave them alone. Whatever space we'd create, which I want multiple spaces all around the world like this, is safe space, right? Safe space, but where they don't have to have somebody looking over their shoulder telling them exactly what to do. There would be intentional time where they could experience that autonomy and just be in their own energy, right? Safely during their school day. That's what I would want for them. Of course, other things to be able to experience water play, depending on what age we're talking about, just sensory fed, right? People understanding that body stuff, like what people would call like the bizarre body stuff or something like that, is a lot of times dysregulation. And it's a sensory thing that we might not be able to understand from our typical lens, but it's not a behavior. So it's like creating that environment for regulation and soothing. And it would be a learning process. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect, but it would go in with that intention. And, now being so fine tuned, I feel like, I spent a lot of time in quiet meditation. Now I'm able to experience my own awareness, meaning my own perceiverness. I can see my thoughts coming up, I can feel energies come in. So when I tell you, this is Joe Dispenza's work, if you've ever heard of him, but each place holds an energy signature. I can feel the energy of my house. I can feel the energy of the school that I go work in. I can feel the energy of other people's houses. I can feel the energies of doctors' offices that I go into. And so each place will hold an energetic signature. And so if we put the right intention on it, and this isn't BS, this is actually studied, like energies and like frequencies will vibrate with other like frequencies. So if a place is holding an energetic signature of fear and disbelief and contraction, guess what's gonna resonate in your body? All the spots that you have fear and disbelief and contraction. If you have a space that is momentous with power and not force and presence, what's gonna resonate and grow in you is those types of frequencies and energy, because anything that you could describe, any emotional wave, emotions are energy. Think about when you're sad, that holds a certain energy. When you're mad, that holds a certain energy. And those are frequencies. And so no matter what it is, you can put a frequency on it. So it's just, what frequency do you want to vibrate and resonate with? Okay. So, speaking from my own experience, especially when I first got here, this even letterboard was brand new. And I'm going to say I've gone into a place, I'll just say a place, and people were very skeptical of it and didn't believe it. And it's so funny how, I mean, I can absolutely see it now, how your energy will be affected by the belief in you or the disbelief in you. So yeah, getting back to the vision for the school, presuming competence, belief all the way, and then intending on the right environment. And side note, if you've listened to the telepathy tapes and this information is now out everywhere, sound can be healing. Sound can hold frequency and can be healing. So I would want to have, okay, maybe this will go into the next point, like how their day is designed. And again, this is just loose ideas that I feel like would, they're not neurotypical bodies. They have very different neurology, very different sensory system, very different challenges, especially with their motor. So instead of just putting them in a typical school day that's kind of like designed for a neurotypical child. Side note, not that I'm like against traditional schooling, but I don't even send my kid to a traditional school. I feel like, you have to do what's right for you. But, there are other ways. So, what can we do with everything we know, with the whole picture, to create a space that is going to serve them and put our energy, giving them the help that actually matters, and not wasting our energy and wasting our help with them, because they need different things. They need different things. All right, third point, kind of piggybacking off of, these guys need an environment that's going to keep feeding their system in the right direction. You know, I would want like a side room somewhere, and it could be each child each day gets sound frequency sessions because their system is very sensitive. And so these are the things that I had been kind of hesitant to share because people don't understand these things if they haven't been exposed to them. So it would be, a soothing room with we'll play with different sound frequencies, and the child would just go in there just to soothe their system for a while. So maybe their motor could work better, right? And somebody would be in there holding a high frequency, high presence space. I would love that job. It's so funny. I've gotten so into meditating. And when I was younger, I'd be like, how do nuns just go off to the nunnery and like pray all day? And now I get it. Like I feel like I could go pray all day, you guys. I could go pray all day. But just holding that space for them, right? And okay, here we go. I'm going to say something else that people may not understand, but if you have listened to the telepathy tapes, you may starting to understand, or you might be into this stuff yourself. So crystals hold different frequencies. Crystals hold energy, and there's crystals in your computer. They're conductors of energy. And actually, Houston again, who was on the telepathy tapes, he before I knew about any of this, he brought me crystals. And his mom said Houston said he wanted to give these to you, and I think there was like 4 of them that he gave me. So since then, I've learned a lot about crystals and have been interested in them. Definitely a big part of my life now. And I would want to put crystals in the room, probably up top to keep the kids safe, but to hold a certain frequency. That's a vision that I have for the school where I was very scared to share that because I feel like people might not receive it. And I know people still might not receive it, and that's okay. It doesn't matter. Okay, so another thing would be motor control practices, mind body connection practices, because many of these kids, most of them, have some level of apraxia. What does that mean? Their mind can't control their body purposefully much of the time. And so we need to be putting practices in every day, simple practices. When I worked at Recliff in Atlanta, both Reese and Houston, people who went there, Reese was the one who was the idea man for Recliff. If you don't know what it is, look it up. It's a gym for autistics, and they offer an array of services to help serve the non-speaking community. But both of them had said that it's called interactive metronome, where a metronome plays, and what you do is you will do purposeful movements to keep the pace of the metronome, just like clapping hands, pat and lap. They said it could be monotonous, but it's so important for them. Like it was so important for them to put the neural pathways in their body to be able to have more access to their purposeful motor, because the brain is neuroplastic. And remember, they have apraxia. So they don't have that mind body connection where it's like my mind tells my body what to do. So to help gain more control over the purposeful motor, stuff like I am every single day. I am interactive metronome. I'm talking about working that purposeful motor in simple ways every single day. If we could put this into the school day of a child where they're getting this every day because this is what their body needs. I was saying that my little girl goes to a non-traditional school, and I know her school is very intentional about giving the body what it needs, and they pay attention to the body throughout the day. After all, we're living in our bodies. So, body regulation, nervous system regulation, growing the mind body connection, a lot of work and emphasis on the purposeful motor every single day. And then to my 4th point, which could have probably been the 2nd point, but so I'll go over the points again. Presume competence, energetic signature, creating the right soothing environment for their hypersensitive systems and bodies. Number 3, giving their bodies what it needs, whether it's sound or practicing that motor control and increasing the mind body connection. And number 4, which I said was probably could be like number 2, but number 4 would be trained letterboard practitioners, multiple people who are on the letterboards with the kids. So that way, all the practitioners could be practicing every day, and all the kids could be practicing every day on the letterboards. And because right now, the way that I'm running my business is I'm seeing a child once a week or twice a week or a couple of times a week, and I'm only one person. I'm only one person. And, in a school day, it could be, spelling, then a break, and then whatever. Like I'm doing spelling back to back, and this is constantly prompting somebody's body head to toe, pulling their awareness from the sensory outside environment into our environment, pulling their purposeful motor, training their purposeful motor, coaching their body head to toe. And I do believe that I'm making an impact. And I do cherish each of my relationships and connections that I have with each of my clients, but I want to make a greater impact. And it's time. It's time. It's time. So I know that in order for this to ever happen one day, if it ever does, I have to start sharing about my vision for this. I can't keep quiet about it anymore. I have to start sharing. And it has to be because in my life, in my personal experience, to be frank, I know that I'm a highly sensitive person. And this is an actual thing. It's an actual evolutionary trait. There's 20% of the population who are highly sensitive people, HSPs. If you feel like you're one, you should totally go look it up and read them. You'll be like, oh, yeah, that's me. It's not good or bad or whatever. But what it is it's human beings who are actually taking in more information into their body. And you're actually seeing things that other people aren't seeing, or I should say, feeling things that other people aren't feeling. And so, really, a lot of my life experiences, even as a little girl, has been I feel something here, but I have no way of validating it. And it seems like nobody else is feeling it or worried about it or anything like that. And now I see it as something that I can use to fine tune and to become aware of and build confidence in whatever information I'm getting to share with people to create a better world. In the past, it wasn't so easy because my body was so overwhelmed that I was literally running on adrenaline like all the time. I feel like I was running on adrenaline all the time. And I never really spoke my mind because there was a discrepancy there. I felt like people wouldn't hear it. But I'm at the point where it's like, if people hear it, great. If they don't hear it and they don't believe me, great. Again, like, I was saying, I'm at the point where I have to share. So if you've listened to this and you resonated with the information in any way and you feel like, yes, I feel her. Like, I know she's on to something and I want to help. Most people feel like in order to help, I have to like go out and do something. What I've learned is that things shift and change a lot of times on the energetic level, meaning that sometimes you don't have to actually go out and get the thing done. There are people for that. And I can't wait for those people to come to me and be like, let's do this, girl, because you guys know I can be a little bit laid back. But if you want to help, what you can do is listen to the episode that I'm going to share with you of the side talk tracks of the telepathy tapes with Susie Miller. You can just listen to that and hear that information. And that will already create a shift towards what I'm trying to create. Also, you can just listen to the telepathy tapes because I do feel like that is like where it's the point of view that I'm trying to come from. It's acknowledging that it's a higher purpose thing. In my own journey, I know everybody has different things that they're attracted to and different ways that they feel like God speaks to them and that they learn and grow. For me, one of my favorite teachers, his name is Eckhart Tolle, and I've read all of his books multiple times, but he talks about a shift in humanity and a new earth coming. And it's going to be, humans are getting a little bit deep here, but humans have been identified with their thoughts and with the contraction of their thoughts, and they haven't really pushed past that. They haven't really gotten in touch with the dimension that is past the thought. If you don't get it, it's okay, don't worry. But he talks about spaces being created that are conscious and they're different. They're created with a different energetic signature. It's more high frequency and high vibrational, and it's more transformative, and it's not traditional and mind based. And truly, in my heart, I feel like that is what I'm inspired with for these guys. One more thing that I forgot to mention that I would like to see in the school is an animal or animals. I can't remember who I was reading, but they talked about dogs being like guardians of presence. And I know, I mean, of course, That would be like a fine detail thing. We'd have to figure out which kids were okay with animals and which animals. But, you know, a space where they could spend time if they wanted to be with the dog and cuddle the dog or brush the dog or like a horse. Horses, there's a lot of research on them having coherence with humans and humans' heartbeats. And I mean, well, I could get into it big time. I could get into it big time, but I won't. I won't, but it's just going to be, if it ever is going to be, it's going to be created not from that old school traditional disbelief, mindy space. It's just not going to be that. And so yeah, it may happen, it may not, but I do need to start talking about it, and I will be consulting with people who are fluent on the boards. So if you're listening to this and you do have a fluent speller on the boards, they want to give their feedback about what I've said, go ahead and shoot me an email. That would be amazing, amazing. But I do want to hire some non speakers as consultants here. Yes, because I want to do this the right way. I want to do it the right way. But I will go now. This is it. And if you are interested on how I actually came to this conclusion of knowing that the inspirations were happening to me, I have a great story. I have a great story that I can share of synchronicities of how I feel like the universe is really just talking to me, really just talking to me. So yeah, go ahead and DM me on Facebook or Instagram if you do want to hear that story or comment. And if you can please share the podcast, comment on the podcast. I actually do have listeners from like all around the world, which I didn't realize, at least to some of the episodes. I'm just like, wow, that's crazy. Yes, like, share, comment, rate it. And it's been quite a journey. I've come a long way since the first episode. So, God bless you and big love, big kisses.